one of the pushbacks I get from unbelieving family is about some of the atrocities in the Old Testament.
Yes.
Specifically, a woman having to marry her rapist or vice versa. I mean, I sort of have an answer for it, but it's sort of difficult to press in today's culture. And then, some of the other wars and what are perceived by some as genocides and things like that. So how would you answer?
All right, let's deal with the rape issue first, because that's a big one. The best book on this topic is by 𝗦𝗢𝗧𝗧, who is a brilliant scholar, teaches at Palm Beach University. He's written a number of books. This is the book, 𝗦𝗨𝗦𝗧. Here is what he talks about with regard to this issue. First of all, before we even address it, is the person that that's bringing up this objection, is this person an atheist?
She's more anti-God than an atheist.
So that's even worse.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
One thing you can ask her, you could just ask her, why do you think rape is wrong? I mean, if there's no God,
right.
If evolution is true, and there is no God, and by the way, even if evolution is true, it doesn't mean there's no God.
Right.
I could go into that now, I don't have time, but say there is no God, and we're just overgrown germs, then there's nothing wrong with raping to propagate our genes, right?
Sure.
So, in other words, she's stealing a standard from God to say God doesn't exist. But let's deal with the question on rape directly. Here's what 𝗦𝗢𝗧𝗧 says. There are three different scenarios in this section of Scripture. This is Deuteronomy 22, 23 to 29. There's adultery, there's rape, and there's seduction with no resistance. Okay? And here's how this plays out. If they were actually involved in adultery, they're both married, then capital punishment was the punishment in the Old Testament for adultery. If it's rape, it's capital punishment for the man. Obviously, the woman is not guilty. If it's seduction, if the woman was not pledged to be married, the man was to pay a fine, was obligated to marry her unless her father refused. He could never divorce her. This ensured her security because in the ancient Near East culture, she would be ostracized and unable to find a husband and protection. In other words, if she just agreed to have intercourse with this guy, this is not a rape situation. This was what was told by God to do.
So it's a misunderstanding someone has ever, or that it was ever in the Bible that...
Exactly. You've got to know the Hebrew to understand what the differences are. The last point is this. The Old Testament law is not applicable today only for the theocracy of ancient Israel. So I would suggest that in today's culture, while our punishment isn't as extreme, we agree that adultery is wrong, that rape is wrong, and if people consent to have sex, somebody ought to take care of a woman if she's in trouble. We agree. This is the same agreement right now. So there's a lot of nuance to this, and of course the atheists and the anti-theists don't want nuance. They want to try and call God evil when they have no standard of good by which to call God evil.
Right.
All right?
Themselves.
Yes,
their
that's
standard of
right.
good, which is very dangerous.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christy.